Are we live?
We are live.
Hi, Jeff McKinney.
Hi, viewers. May not be a whole lot of live viewers tonight just because we're recording on an off night. But plenty of you will be here afterwards. Now I'm all tied up in cables. Everything's going great right now. All right. Mute everything. All right, let's do this. So, John, are you watching it all or no?
Am I watching what?
The live stream. You're fine. I'm assuming not.
Can't.
Okay. Let me pop it out here so I can keep an eye on it then. Just in case anybody's watching, we get some questions. I'd like to be able to field them. So put that there. That'll work. Get over here. All right. We're about to be ready to go. All right. Lars, we're going to get going then.
Awesome.
All right. And get all my levels set. And I am recording. I'm showing 8:25. Oh my goodness. We're starting early.
Wait.
All right. Here we go.
What?
My name is Angus Winchester. I'm the Global Education Director for BCB, and I often describe myself as an alcoholic with a bartending problem. You're listening to the We Like Drinking podcast, the place where you never drink alone.
At the sound of the tone, the official We Like Drinking time will be 5 o'clock. Commence consumption.
This week on episode 247 of the We Like Drinking podcast, we'll be discussing learning your lagering, Iowa Nice, the finale, and we're talking all things German beers with Lars Dalhaus. So crack open your beers, uncork that wine, and let's get drinking. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all our drinkers, let's get ready for the fun tonight. We have a lot going on. We have a lot to talk about, and I am thirsty. So let's do this. And let me say cheers, my podcast drinking friends, and welcome to Happy Hour 247 of the only two-time beer and wine education podcast focusing on fun and bitterness and anger. And no, I'm just kidding. So folks, you're listening to the show. You can already tell, like we're 30 seconds in. You can tell that this is just podcast gold that you should probably subscribe to so you don't miss next year when we do become 3-time champions. Visit WeLikeDrinking.com/subscribe to find out how you can never miss another episode of this show getting into your earballs. Oh my goodness. John, are you thirsty?
Yes. You know me. I mean, there's a good hit off the top of my pint already.
Right. Lars, are you thirsty?
I am. I absolutely am.
All right. Well,
we can't wait to open it.
We got to get things started and find out who we're drinking with tonight. We've got our usual panel members -1. We have our commercial brewer, John Ruyak.
Hey, folks.
I am your host, Jeff Eccles. Normally, we have Jeff Solomon with us. However, Jeff Solomon is welcoming his 3rd son into the world today. So congratulations, Jeff and Sarah, on your newborn baby. Everything looks healthy, and everybody is doing well from what I've heard. What?
Kara. It's Kara.
What did I say?
You had Sarah.
Are you shitting me? Did I really?
No, I'm not shitting you. You said Sarah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well,
you gotta go back and edit that.
Fix that in post. Oh my goodness. All right.
Take a note.
Yep. Now, our guest this week is the co-founder of Liquid Project LLC, a company focused on the branding and marketing of overseas beers and spirit brands as they bring them into the United States market. He also recently began work to spearhead the new bar program of Baldor Specialty Foods. Please help us welcome Lars Dalhaus. Welcome to the show, Lars.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's
Absolutely.
quite an honor, yeah.
I don't know about that, but let's just run with it and say yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is. We are super excited to have you on the show. I know when we were initially talking, we were talking about having you on to talk about Oktoberfest, but since by the time this airs, Oktoberfest will officially be over. We might touch on it a little bit, but there's so much to talk to you about. We're just going to do all that. But let's find out what everybody's drinking first. John, why don't you start us off? What you got?
Well, I've got Lizard Tail Marzen Oktoberfest beer. It's about 33% Munich 2 malts, so that gives it the real nice maltiness, and the major backbone's Pilsen malts, which when you taste them, you know what they are. But this clocks in at 5.6 ABV and about 22 IBUs. We use Pearly to hop the beer.
Nice. How much is left?
I've got the third batch, which I'm really excited about. So we did 3 batches this year. I'm drinking the second batch. The third batch is really, I can't wait to get it on tap. It's still conditioning. It's got another 2 weeks in the cold room conditioning. But we'll be out of it for probably a week in between these two. So, oh well, you do what you can do.
Very true. Lars, what's in your glass tonight?
So I'm going to be cracking open this can of Joanne IPA from Brown's Brewing in upstate New York, which is a New England style IPA, nice and hazy, 5.25% ABV, mostly West Coast hops. And I've actually never tried this. So literally got this can yesterday. And we're adding it to the portfolio at Baldor as of Thursday, so I should better try it.
Yeah, that may be helpful. Excellent. And while you're pouring that, I am going with local here to Colorado Springs, Red Leg Brewing Company Hazy IPA as well. This one it's a hazy. It's got Mosaic, Amco, Simcoe hops in it, so nice little hazy.
Is Red Lake still in that little back corner off of Garden of the Gods, or have they moved?
They have not moved yet.
Just curious.
All right. So Lars, how is it?
I've let it pour slowly and smelled it. It's nice. It's refreshing, but it has a little bit of has a very upfront bitterness. Good, drinks easy, but has that IPA bite that I like as well. A little bit of resin, not too much. At 5.25, I didn't expect it to be too harsh. Yeah, but it has it. So
nice. And you said that's from Brown's Brewing?
Yeah, Brown's Brewing in upstate New York, which we took on at Baldor as for New York City and Long Island, and even though they've been around in New York for 26 years, they've never been in New York City. So,
oh wow,
quite amazing.
That's a big one for you guys.
Big days for Brown's Brewing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
awesome. Okay, we got the drinks done. We got the intros done. We got to do a little bit of the smarts before we get to the interview. So let's get to the bit we like to call wine, beer, or pop culture reference. So this is where I'm going to give these guys a term, and they're going to try to tell me if it's a wine term, a beer term, or some kind of pop culture reference. Folks, you know how good I am with the other language words, so get ready for a doozy this week. The term this week is Theresienwiese. So is Theresienwiese a wine term, a beer term, or a pop culture reference? John Ruyak, we're going to start with you this week.
Okay. Well, you know what my question is. Mr. Eccles, yes. Can you spell that, please?
Absolutely. Do you have pen and paper?
I do. Look, I've got a legal pad and an ink pen.
Okay, because you may need it. All right, here we go. Capital T, HERESIENWIESE.
Okay, Teresian Visa. So this is I'm gonna say it's some sort of wheat beer made by some lady named Therese. I had a crush on a girl named Therese back at junior high school.
Okay.
Maybe it's her. But she was Italian.
That would be the ultimate pop culture reference if I pulled out somebody you had a
So I'm thinking it's a beer term. It's a wheat beer made by some lady named Therese.
All right, so you're going with a beer term that is a wheat beer made by somebody named Therese. Okay, Lars, do you have any idea what Teresian Visa is?
Yeah, it's
And before we go further, can you pronounce it the proper way, please?
yeah. So let's pronounce Theresienwiese. And it is a beer term. It is actually the grounds of where. Should I spill the beans?
Yes, absolutely. Go for it.
It's the grounds where the Oktoberfest takes place every year.
All right.
Wiese meaning lawn.
Okay.
So Lars is saying that it is the open space where Oktoberfest officially happens in Munich. All right. I wonder who's right. It is, in fact, a beer term. We would have taken pop culture references, right?
I was going to say, you better take pop culture reference for that, too.
Oh, you both got it right, and Lars is absolutely right. I don't even need to say anything else because he said exactly what I have written down. So absolutely well done. And Lars, could you say it one more time so I stop butchering it?
Theresienwiese.
I mean, it wasn't that bad. I didn't.
No, you did good.
Yeah, but you said it in your American accent, which made it terrible.
Right. All right, Lars. So let's get into this. There's so much to talk to you about. You do so much in the beer industry, really in beer, wine, spirits. You got your hands in all of it. I wanted to touch on a couple of things. And first, let's just talk to you about German beer, I think. You're bringing beer into the U.S. What are some of the biggest challenges with Liquid Projects, the biggest challenges that you face in bringing wine, beer, or spirit from overseas into the U.S. market?
Well, I've actually started importing beer in 2003 when I started a small beer import company with a friend of mine who became the owner of our local brewery in the town that we both grew up in Germany, which is the city of Schwelm near Düsseldorf and Cologne. And just for pure egoistical reasons, I decided that, hey, I want to drink that beer here. And we started a beer import company together, and I ran it for 6-7 years, and we did really well. Back in 2003, 2004, there was not a lot of craft imported in this country at all. And then we added on other brands to that portfolio, and but unfortunately during 2007, 2008, the economy didn't do so well, so we had to change course. But then I went actually to work with St. Killian, who is one of the largest beer import companies, privately owned beer import companies in the US, and got involved with a number of other beers, but mostly from Europe as well. And I think one of the biggest challenges, speaking with breweries in Germany and Europe in general, is their expectations of what they perceive the US market to be, and especially how it changed over the decade and a half. That they look at the population, the size of this country, and think that, yep, there's enough space for me to sell 100,000, 200,000 cases a year, and my beer is fantastic. I know that, but that doesn't always happen, and it has to do with so many factors, and Also has to do with the fact that a lot of German breweries make the same beer. Everybody makes a Pilsner, everybody makes a Hefeweizen, and you can only have so much of one thing. So, I mean, that's just scratching the surface. It's, my everyday gripe had to do with things like telling people that each state in the US is different. You cannot promote your beer in this state the way you do the next state over. And that notion, that comprehension took forever, right?
I can imagine.
Yeah, let alone all the legal challenges of label registration, state registration, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we've jumped through a lot of hurdles, and I've explained these things to many people, and oftentimes also said to people that, hey, it's best if you do not bring your beer over to the US unless you're properly prepared to do it.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering if that was the case, because the laws here are such a hot mess, especially compared to countries that have never shied away from beer.
Right.
So yeah, I imagine that was going to be some of the biggest hurdles. John, did you have any questions in those same rooms?
Yeah, well, sort of, not from a legal standpoint. I mean, I don't want to go into the labyrinthine behemoth that is. But I have a very fond history with imported German beer. Back in the day, in Pennsylvania, the drinking age was 21, and I grew a mustache and went to school out of state, but came home, and my buddy went to school in Pennsylvania, and I wasn't quite 21 yet. But if you went into a beer distributor and you got German beer, they figured you knew what you were talking about. They didn't card you. So we drank a lot of Dinkelacker kegs. Do you remember those things?
Yeah, sure. The 5-liter ones.
Yeah. Let's get a keg of Dinkelacker. And then there was a Dinkelacker Dark, and yeah, don't worry about dogs. Mine bark all the time.
Yeah.
But the one thing about that I'm not sure how the craft, or I want to say the craft beer revolution we talked about before the show, is not quite the same in Germany, because I mean, the place is just dripping with breweries, right? But German beer travels better than many other beers from other countries, and particularly the United Kingdom. It's really just English beer doesn't travel very well, but German beer does. But what kind of hurdles do you see with that, getting into the U.S. market, with maintaining a quality given the kind of niche that you're trying to carve out for those folks?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've literally been in Germany when a container left and taken a bottle out of a case right then and there before we closed the door, and I've taken a bottle out of the container as I open it up in the US, of the same box, and I swear I could feel a little difference. And it's just the nature of the beast of traveling about 3,500 miles and being on the water and shaking around. It's never a good thing for beer. At the same time, I would say that the quality controls that my German friends go through to make that beer, they're so high that the chances for infections are virtually none. And the beer also has the ability to mature as long as it's not pasteurized. The beers that I've been involved with from Germany most recently, none of them were pasteurized.
Oh, good. So there is that aging ability.
Correct. So you have residual yeast. There's some sugar in there left, and so if anything, it morphs a little bit and it changes, but it doesn't go bad. And on the contrary, some beers that we've had over here that have just been getting better. I've imported a beer from Zollerhof Brewery in southern Baden-Württemberg. They make a beer that's over 50 weeks in the tanks, and that beer is 7.5% Doppelbock, a pale Doppelbock. It does not go bad. It just
No.
it just gets better.
Where can I find one of those bottles, sir?
Yeah. Yeah, it's around.
Wow, 50 weeks in the tank. I mean, that's a different question for you being an importer than an actual brewer, but leaving all that money in a tank for 50 weeks is a long time.
Right. Yes, that is exactly why they did it. They were like, what can we do that no American brewery in their sane mind would ever do?
I get nervous when I've got a fermenter of Belgian Double that's been conditioning for 4 months now, and I'm just like, I need to get that into a keg. It was just making me nervous. I mean, I know there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, but the American mindset for most brewers is get it in the tank, get it out of the tank, put it in the keg, put it on tap, and we're good, right?
Yeah.
So there's a different mindset for that, but I mean, but the way that plays into the way you work with the products you work. I mean, have you seen in your area of the country with the beers you're bringing some change in that from the brewer standpoint in your area? I mean, are you seeing brewers go to those kinds of dedication to leaving a beer in a tank for 2, 3, 4, 5 months?
Yeah, we've also tried a number of things. We've at some point we've tried to bring over IPAs from Germany, and I think other importers have tried that too, and it didn't really resonate all that well because this country's IPA central, right?
Yeah.
This is definitely the place to have that, so we stopped that. But as far as lagers is concerned, the Europeans are definitely have that down much more so than anybody else. And I do see a change in New York and places like Philadelphia that are very beer mature towards lagers as well. So there's a shift towards lagers and quality lagers and all styles within Doppelbocks and Zwickel beers, Keller beers, all in that vein that are becoming somewhat popular, and that's the niche for European breweries to be successful in. Hefeweizens as well. I mean, I'm not a big fan of mixed drinks like the fruit Hefeweizens. I've never been a big fan of, but it certainly grabbed the attention of a lot of folks here. I've brought over Radlers, and some of them have worked, some of them haven't. But in general, I would say the lagers, some of the craft Hefeweizens is the way to go for those craft Germans. Some sours, the Berliner Weisse style, the Leipziger Gose style. I mean, there are a surprising amount of German beer styles that have never been imported. We've imported brought over a beer from northeast Bavaria from the Friedenfelser Brewery, which is a Zeugel, which is somewhat closely related to a Zwickel. It's also an unfiltered lager, but made with a yeast that is many hundreds of years old and creates a very fine carbonation. Amber lager, and just there's no other beer like that available in the US. So that I think is the niche for those brands.
So I know, Jeff, you want to ask another question, but I just you're kicking out all these styles. I mean, has the rise of brewing and the reawakening it kicked up the production of long lost styles in Germany?
Yeah. Oh, it definitely has. I've seen a lot of 20 years ago there was just Pilsner and the Hefeweizen, maybe a Helles Lager in Bavaria, but that was pretty much it. The Riedenburger Brewery, which we've been helping to bring over, it's an organic brewery from Bavaria. They make an Emmer wheat beer, Emmer is an ancient grain that's been around for 3,000 years that they pretty much single-handedly revived in the beer brewing world, and make a fantastic wheat beer out of it. And what's also amazing is that grain is so pure and so natural that even in people that are gluten intolerant, it doesn't create any allergies.
Right.
And it's because it's not been cross modified.
That's a high yielding grain too, is it not? Emmer wheat. I thought you got a lot of usable grain out of a hectare or an acre with that particular product.
Yeah, I mean I've been to the brewery, and I think that the biggest pain was finding a malt house that would actually create malt out of it.
Yeah.
You know.
Is someone dedicating to the resurrection of Dortmunder?
That I don't know. I mean, I see more American breweries making a Dortmunder, and I'm always baffled on what, they've probably never even been close to Dortmund. I was born in the town next to Dortmund, and we definitely, when I grew up there was definitely not a style we would even know existed, even though we're right next to it, right?
Yeah.
There was Dortmunder und Jon and a couple of other breweries that then went out of business.
Yeah, Acton and Union, right?
Yeah.
So as you're working on bringing these German beers into the U.S. and you're out talking to people about the beers you're trying to bring in, what would you say are some of the top, or maybe even the biggest misconception you run into with Americans and their perception of what German beer or German craft beer is?
Mm-hmm. Well, most don't even know that German craft beer exists, right? They assume that the same landscape that used to be in the US with only a handful of real players was same in Germany, and that is just not the case. We've had more than 1,300 breweries for even more for forever, really, for the last 100-something years, and then even more. But the saturation of breweries that we have in the US now, we've had in Germany definitely over the last 20 years. But most people didn't know that. Even when you travel to Germany, when you just travel to an isolated city, you would usually see one or two brands or three brands within that region, because they would dominate a certain town, or there usually be 2 or 3 breweries in a town. So if you just travel to one town, you would only see 2 or 3 breweries. But then once you travel to many towns, you realize that, oh yeah, that's different in every town. But you would still find the same beer styles, right? You could travel all through Germany and go from pub to pub, even though you drink a different brewery's beer, but you would still drink a Pilsner.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And is that change? I mean, it sounds like it is a little bit, but is that changing in Germany? I mean, they still have to follow the Reinheitsgebot, right? But are they changing in the onslaught that is the American or the global push in different styles and the craft beer movement, if you will?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are cities that are leading that charge. Certainly Berlin and Hamburg, and Düsseldorf has a great craft beer. I mean, Düsseldorf, Cologne have always been great craft beer cities with their Kölsch beer and the Alt beer respectively. Berlin has a bunch of cool breweries, new breweries opening up. Hamburg, the same, but it makes up super small percentages of the overall beer consumption. And even friends of mine that I grew up with, they'd be like, no, I prefer drinking my Veltlin, so I prefer drinking my Krombacher, even though they have craft options to that. I don't see a large portion of the population really liking IPAs all that much. There are people that are curious about it, and there's certainly a scene. I would say the ones that are successful in that people that starting new breweries, do well with the Berliner Weisse. They do well with making true German European beer styles with an emphasis on quality, with an emphasis on really making it the way it used to be made. But with some new hops or resurrected hops from Bavaria. The Mandarina Bavaria hop variety, for example, is a great new hop from Bavaria, which I like a lot. And there's actually Browns, talking about Browns again, Browns makes a Mandarina Pilsner now. And it's using Bavaria Mandarina hops, and it's just fantastic.
We use quite a bit of Huell Malone.
Which one?
The Huell Malone, the melon hop.
Oh yeah. Is that grown in the Hallertau?
Yes.
Yeah.
We use it in the famous strawberry IPA.
Oh, nice.
John, do you have any other questions for Lars?
I did, but it fleeted for me for a second. No, really, seriously.
Okay, well, you think about it for a second.
Sure.
So with your you have so many things going on, but now you're working with Baldor Specialty Foods. For those of you that don't know, Baldor is one of the largest importers and distributors of produce and food in the Northeast United States. Yeah. And this new program is looking to expand their offerings, right?
Yeah. So, I'm super excited about spearheading that program, and it's sort of a dream come true for me because I've been involved in importing. I've called on wholesalers and all those folks, but I've never been actually running a beer distribution company. And while I had that dream, I didn't have the funds to start my own, and I've seen people struggling with that thought. And long story short, stumbled upon the folks at Baldor, and they were just looking to expand into beer, and I felt it was the perfect moment to work together. They have the great logistics. They have refrigerated warehouse. All the trucks are refrigerated, and that's a craft beer lover dream, to make sure that all your beer is taken care of the right way. And then we have the reach. We have all these customers that buy from Baldor every day, and we can reach 20 million people within the greater New York area on a daily basis.
Wow.
So that's just a fantastic place to start from.
Yeah.
And now my task is to build a portfolio, look for brands that are looking to come to New York without creating redundancies. We don't need 15 of the same beers. But I think what's appealing to the people that we're talking to, the breweries that we're working with, is that we're not so overloaded with our beer portfolio. We have a sales team that is focused on food, and the whole idea of beer and food pairing is becoming so amazing. The thought of selecting a beer that works well with your cuisine as a restaurant owner is key. And we have those salespeople at Baldor, and they've been there for many, many years. So my job is now training them how to add beer to their offering, and it's a fun challenge. We're doing a lot of classes at work every week, teaching them what differentiates ale from a lager, and what is a Märzen. We talked about a lot about Oktoberfest beers and all that stuff. So I'm very happy to lead that charge, and it's New York for now. We're hoping to expand to New Jersey and possibly some other states, and bring some good beer to those folks.
Nice. It sounds like it's being received well, but how's it being received both to the people that you're working with in Baldor and then maybe outside in the hospitality community as well?
Yeah. So I would say our customers, our restaurants first also appreciate the service that we offer, that we're there 6 days a week within New York, everything below Albany and all the way out to Long Island. So they appreciate that service factor. And, some of the beers that we put in front of them really, really excited them.
Nice.
So I feel like we put something in our salespeople's hand that they can go out and feel confident about selling. So that's been very high on my list. And so far, we quote unquote, we have only 3 local brands in the book, which is Browns from upstate. It's Bridge and Tunnel from Queens, which is a small mom and pop brewery from Ridgewood, Queens, making some amazing, crazy beer styles, but really unique, very, very different, and just fantastic. And then we work with Descendant Cider, which is Brooklyn's first cidery. Started about 5 or 6 years ago. Also, husband-wife team, making fantastic range of dry cider, semi-dry, and fruit-forward cider. So that being the local ones, we're now looking at some international beers as well. We have 2 French beers, one from Paris, La Parisienne. We have the Licorne from the Alsace, which is landing in a week or 2. We've got an English cider, and we'll also be at some point be selling some of the German brands that I've been involved in a number of years. But mind you, we've only really been seriously doing this for the last 2 months.
Yeah,
so
it's been
very new.
If you need a guy, I can put you in contact with a guy that knows German beer pretty well. I think he does some importing too. I got a guy for you.
Good.
John, did your feeble mind find the question?
Well, I'd actually written it down when we were doing our pre-show. There was a note in here about maybe Brooklyn Brewery putting some of the products from Baldor into some of their beers. Is that correct? Or
well, not Brooklyn necessarily. That I don't know, but we've been working with the Bronx Brewery for a number of years, and we've made beers with them. Actually, one of my very first tasks when I started with Baldor was to come up with a collaboration beer between Baldor and the Bronx Brewery, and we wound up making a strawberry rhubarb gose, which included strawberries from Baldor, Driscoll strawberries. And I was asked, hey, what beer style do you like? And I'm like, hey, gose would be really cool. So we used Himalayan sea salt and strawberry and fresh rhubarb, and pureed it all up, pasteurized it, and made that beer.
My mouth is just watering.
I was going to say, I mean, dang. Thanks, Lars.
Yeah,
that's amazing. John, any other questions for Lars before we move on?
Well, how do you see the arc going for German beers in the United States? I mean, we all know that the whole world of alcohol has its sine waves relative to beer appreciation, beer consumption, beer sales, and they work kind of differently and it moves down a track towards wine and then hard liquors and things like that. But do you see an upswing for a re-infiltration of German beers into the United States?
I think the potential is there. Yes, it might be. It might come at the expense of some of the larger German breweries, and but it is also because of things that we do at Baldor, where we talk to our restaurant owners and tell them that, hey, when you put on a Pilsner from us, put it on your menu in a certain way so that that you don't lead with a strange, totally unknown beer name, but you rather start with the type of beer. So instead of saying, "Hey, I've got a Friedenfelser Hefeweizen," which nobody has ever heard of, say, "Hey, I've got a great German Hefeweizen brewed by Friedenfelser on the portfolio, on the menu," and then it sells. And it's a fantastic story. We've tried this multiple times, and when you do it like that, it works. Otherwise, you know, building a brand from that nobody knows in the US, I don't care how big it is in Europe, is almost impossible. That costs you millions and millions of dollars, and you'll never get there.
It's the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Americans don't want to, you know, we don't care about names. We just want to know whether it tastes good or not. So when someone says an excellent Hefeweizen, that's all anybody needs to know. They don't, and then they learn the story afterwards, and then that's when they get hooked.
Exactly.
They want product first, story later.
Yes.
Darn Americans.
Darn Americans. We don't follow instructions at all.
So I guess we should throw one question in here. So Oktoberfest is winding down in Germany. Have you had the chance to partake in the celebrations here in the U.S.? Do you walk into an Oktoberfest celebration in the U.S., spit on the ground and walk out, or you know?
I would say I've had plenty of Oktoberfests in my lifetime, but my biggest blemish is probably that I've never been at the actual Bavarian Oktoberfest. I've never been in Munich at the Oktoberfest, and I was trying to fix that blemish this year, and it didn't work out.
Oh.
But I've been at many Volksfests, which is, you know, which what the Oktoberfest is. It's a big carnival and festival, and there are many like that all over Germany, and I've been to pretty much all of them, all of the big ones at least, and they all feel the same. You have big tents, you have the Oompa bands, and you have big beers in 1 liter mass. So I've had plenty of that, plus all of that in the US wherever I traveled for beer. So I've been to some great Oktoberfests, including New York and a lot of other cities in the US, and a lot of them do a great job. I mean, it is butchered every now and then, and it's overdone every now and then, but I feel like it's usually a great time, and it's a worthwhile beer festival to have.
Have you been to the one in Cincinnati?
No, I have not. I've heard good things about it. I've been to Cincinnati, and I love it dearly as a sort of German immigrant town, but I have not been to their Oktoberfest. I hear good things.
One of our show supporters lives close by, and made sure that we knew that the Cincinnati Oktoberfest was the best one in the United States. So Dimitri, yeah, there you go. We said it on the show.
Yeah, I just went to one of our local breweries one this past weekend, and I don't know, you can't help but be in it with a huge smile on your face, and you leave with a huge smile on your face. It's just I love going to them, and I go to it every year, and I just
can I say one thing?
Sure.
Why? And I'm guilty of it myself, but why are we celebrating Oktoberfest in September?
I know.
Why is that, sir?
It's a simple. It has to do with the weather. So simply that royal wedding took place in October, but years later, people realized that the weather was pretty shitty in October, so they moved it into September.
That works in Colorado too, doesn't it, Jeff?
Yes, it does. Yes. Awesome. That's a perfect point to end that portion. Lars, thank you so much for coming up the show and let us interview a little bit. We're going to move on with the show. You're more than welcome to stick around, but I know you're on the East Coast. If you need to take off, you are more than welcome to.
I have a beer to drink, so I'm good.
All right.
All right. You get what you ask for. So let's move into the rest of the show and let's get into some hard hitting booze news. We discuss interesting, noteworthy, or most of the time some pretty stupid things. John, let's go ahead and start with you this week.
Oh, you want my story on loggers, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's this story, and I don't even know where it's from. It just says
just touch the topic.
Okay, it says if you think you hate beer, you likely haven't tried these approachable styles. And I scrolled. I'm like, okay, I'll bite. It's clickbait, right? So I scroll down, and it says number 1's Pilsner, number 2 is Kolsch, which is it's cheater Pilsner for us Americans who make Kolsch, because you can do it in 3 weeks, not 4 months. Marzen, which I'm drinking right now, right? And number 4, lager. Okay, folks, you've been lied to for years and years and years and years and years, right, Lars? Because lager isn't a style per se. It's a way of making beer. Mm-hmm. It's not a style. I lagered this Oktoberfest for 5 weeks. Some Pilsners are lagered for 3 months. The Doppelbock that Lars mentioned earlier was lagered for a freaking year. It was in cold storage. You can lager an IPA if you'd like. It doesn't make it a style. So there you go.
There you have it.
I'm ranting. Am I right, Lars?
You're absolutely right. Yes.
So, everybody's been fed this crap for years and years and years. You got to drink a lager beer. Okay. I'll just take my homebrew that I made in the garage and I'll stick it in the refrigerator for 3 months and I'll call it a lager. There you go.
And, we're kind of laughing about it, but it is a really good point because people do often talk about lagers as if it is a style.
Yeah.
They really do.
It drives me and my boss nuts. The guy who owns the brewery. We're just like, I don't drink craft beer. I like lagers. I'm like,
what kind?
which lager do you like? Do you like Doppelbocks? Do you like Marsens? Do you like, Helles beers? Whatever. Come on.
So, of course, the We Like Drinking listenership is well aware of that. So we've educated them through the 200 and however many shows we've had that's the case, right, John? They know it.
Sure, but let's take this back to Lars. Do you have that same sort of knowledge gap when you're having these educational sessions with Baldor and things of that nature?
Oh yeah, all the time. Just explaining lagers and ales, top fermented and bottom fermented yeasts. I think it's very hard to comprehend. Or I've the German range that I brought in, we called the Reinheitsboten, right? Which was a spiel on the Reinheitsgebot. And I really thought back then that's easy to pronounce, only until I realized that nobody can pronounce it. So a big educational hurdle right there.
Yes.
Well, throw some Theresienweizen on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut up. I practiced that for like 10 minutes.
Did you put it into the Google Pronounce?
Forvo is my friend.
Forvo gave you that one? Okay.
Yeah. And
you didn't take the lesson very well.
Well, there's the time you hear it and you pronounce it, and then there's all the way up to the show. So you have to figure out how you're going to remember how to pronounce it.
You got to walk around for a couple of days and just say it.
Just keep saying it. Just say it to my kids. Say it to my dogs.
That's how do you think I learned how to say Doppelstück?
Doppelstück.
Okay. Anything else on that, John?
No.
Okay. All right. We're going to go with another quick hit. A few weeks ago, we mentioned we talked about the Iowa Nice, the Iowa State football game, where Carson King held up a sign asking for beer money because his Busch supply was running low. when we talked about it on the show, we had mentioned that he was up to $66,000 that he was going to donate to the Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. He ended up saying he was going to run through the month of September, which we've reached. And this is amazing. From a guy holding up a sign at a college football pregame that said, "I need beer money, Venmo it." That turned into $2.9 million. And he is giving all of it except for one case of beer. And actually, he's got a year's supply of beer from Busch Light now. But he is giving almost $3 million to the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. So just, I wanted to follow up on that we talked about a few weeks ago. But just what an amazing story. Good job, college football fans. Good job, beer drinking fans. Donating all that money to this 24-year-old kid in Ames, Iowa.
Good job, America.
Yeah.
Good job, America.
Good job.
And if you followed it all, there's some drama behind it, but that's to be expected.
The most important part is a lot of not so well-off kids who are having some challenges are going to have it a lot easier, and their parents are breathing easier too.
Yep. So I just wanted to follow up on that. So great job, Carson King. As they say, you are an Iowa legend already. There's already a Carson King Day and all that other good stuff from it. So
are they going to name a street after him too?
I'm sure somebody will. So, all right, let's move on. This is going to be the hardest part I've ever talked about of the show, but podcast award update. We were up for our third straight title as best podcast in the arts category. We did not come through. So congratulations to the winner, Dads who love bourbon. Congratulations to you guys on winning it. We're coming for you next year. Dad's Drinking Bourbon. That was the name of it. I'm sorry. We are coming for you next year. We are going to retain our title. We're going to look to try to get them on the show. So be on the lookout for that.
You know what the worst part about that whole thing is?
What's that?
Thousands and thousands of people didn't see our acceptance video.
I know.
That's the only reason I wanted to win this year.
That is truly the shame, is we didn't get to do our acceptance video. That's right.
It could be what kept us from winning too.
that's honestly, that's entirely possible. Okay. My beer's getting empty. It's getting late for Lars. Let's kick this pig down the road and call.
Last call, folks.
Last call. Time to clean house and lock the doors. You know what we do here, folks? We're looking for a little bit of help from you with the show and everything else. So follow us on the social media platforms. John Ruyak, where can listeners find us?
Folks, find us on Twitter. That's We Like Drinking 1, the numeral 1. Instagram, We Like Drinking, and our group on Facebook known as The Tavern. That's welikedrinking.com/tavern, folks. Go there. Hang out with us. Tell us what you're drinking.
That's right. Lars, what is the best place for people to find you on social media platforms if they're looking to connect with you?
I'd say right now, go to Baldor Bar on Instagram. Reach me at Baldor Food, and certainly Liquid Projects on Instagram as well. Many ways to get in touch with you. Just Google beer and Lars, and eventually you'll find me.
Awesome.
Excellent. And we'll put links to all those Instagram and Twitter feeds on our show notes if you want to find them. So you can search us up on Apple Podcasts and leave us a big fat 5-star review. We got another 5-star review this week. No words though, just the review. We'll take it. We need one more. Somebody just go click 5 stars for us. But if you enjoyed the show, tell a friend, pass the word on, tell them to enjoy some Oktoberfest beers. And John, if the listeners have done all that and they're looking to help us out even more, how can they do that?
We've talked about all the places you can find spare change. I mean, there's the couch, right? Mm-hmm. The wash machine, the dryer, mm-hmm. Right? Occasionally you find it in the gutter while you're walking your dogs out on the street.
Sure.
I know when I was a kid, there was this washing machine and a laundromat that dropped all of its change underneath of it, so you could go down there and scoop out some dimes and quarters from underneath the washing machine.
Okay.
The cup holder in your car's got change in it, right?
Okay, that's plenty of ideas on where they can find it.
All that change, you know what? Visit welikedrinking.com/pledge and find out more information how to put all that change from the jar in your laundry room and all that other, your cup holder in your car, and give it to us so we can keep the lights on.
Put it into our pockets. That's
right.
Okay.
That's right.
You can also find the show notes for this episode with all the links to the stories or mentions we had at welikedrinking.com/episodes. Oh my goodness. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of German.
Yeah.
That was a blast. But we've reached the time of the show where I get to say, okay, panel, let's take one last trip around this table and get some final thoughts before we shut off the lights. John Ruyak.
Yeah. Okay. So just a couple minutes before Lars came onto the show, I was munching on some crackers, right?
Okay.
And I just want to show everybody, I was having some Ritz. These are Nabisco Ritz crackers, right? And I mean, someone needs to work on the precision here because the holes are way off center. So somebody at Nabisco is not doing their job.
We came so close, John. We came so close to going an entire podcast episode without visual references, and you had to wait till last call to jack it off.
Well, you know, okay. So everybody, I mean, I'll go buy some stock in Nabisco, right? And everybody, all of our listeners, go out and buy a box of Ritz and open them up and see for yourself that the holes are off center. It's a travesty. I wouldn't say it's ruined my night because I've had a great time, but it is less than satisfactory to pick out a cracker from its little wax paper column.
Or if you are listening to John and you said, yeah, I'm going to go buy some Ritz crackers, stop, go to patreon.com, find We Like Drinking.
Oh, yes. And donate that $3.29 to us. Yeah, we'll take it.
Lars, any final thoughts before we let you fall to the left and go to sleep?
Right. Well, I had the pleasure earlier tonight to be at an event in New York City at Francis Tavern, which just celebrated their 300-year anniversary.
Wow.
One of the most iconic buildings in New York City, and certainly one of the most iconic bars in New York now. And they're a great Baldor supporter, and they've been featuring the porterhouse beers from Dublin that I've been involved with in the past year. So I had a fantastic plain porter there. Just kudos to those guys to have a place like theirs, featuring craft beer from all over the world and not being subjected to just having American beer, but being open to international beer, featuring great beers from not just Germany, but all across the globe. And I think that's what I like to see in many other places around the country, that we want to have the best beer, period, where it doesn't matter where it comes from. And if I can leave with that, that'd be amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Yes.
I'll raise my glass to that.
Cheers.
And so you did that, and then
Yes.
you come on our show.
Yes.
Yes. So, but really, I'm sure there's no question. Our show was a much more fun, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though I had cake there, I have to admit.
Oh,
competing with cake.
now we can know you're lying to us, but we'll take it. And so Lars, thank you so much. I know it's super late there, but we really appreciate you coming on and really giving us some insight into the German beer environment and landscape and what's going on there that we didn't know. And I really appreciate you taking the time for it. It was a lot of fun to get to know you a little bit better. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I've got some homework to do.
Absolutely. I've got a whole bunch of beer to try to get Lars to import to Colorado or something. And with that, I'll say thanks again for joining us at the We Like Drinking podcast, where
You'll never drink P.S. listeners, Eccles gives me shit about the holes on my Ritz crackers and that being a visual, and yet we're punching our cameras at the outro of the show.
But we don't tell them we do that. That's just for our guest.
Well, our YouTube watchers see it.
Right, but we don't reference it in the podcast.
All right. Well, I'm wearing a blue shirt.
Perfect. Okay. All right. That was it. All right, viewers, thank you so much. Hold on.
Thank you.
It's just a second, Lars. So